Welcome to a special episode of the Context Podcast by Proof+Geist. I'm your host, Martha Zink, and this is where we get to talk about whatever is going on in the FileMaker community. For this episode, I'm joined by Todd Geist and Ernest Co., as well as our special guests, Peter Nelson and Andy LeCates from Claris. Recently, Claris hosted a webinar and talked about things like new licensing, a new program, Claris Studio, and some new features coming up in the next couple of releases with FileMaker Pro. Here, we chat a little bit more about the intention behind those decisions and where the Claris platform is going. Peter Nelson and Andy LeCates, do you mind introducing yourself? Maybe we start with Peter?
Not at all. Thanks for having us, Martha.
Of course.
I'm Peter Nelson. I run engineering and then portions of product and design at this point for Claris. I've been back with the company for around 2 years now, something like that, maybe just over that. And then was here for the better part of a decade, 7-8 years prior to that. So that's me in a nutshell. I shipped the bento products for a long time, and then left and did a few different startups and came back.
Nice. Oh, I haven't heard bento in a while. That's awesome. It's a good throwback.
And I'm Andrew. I think we've met before, but I'm really pleased to be back with you all. I love your podcast. If we get a chance to talk about it, I really enjoyed the March podcast on the modern FileMaker revolution. And I think probably many people in the audience know me, but if there are a few that don't, I have been a FileMaker developer, trainer, partner, customer, author, everything you can do, starting somewhere around 1988 when I picked up the product for the first time to get my way through summer. I got a summer job to pay my way through college. So it's been a long journey for me, but I'm pleased this bunch to be here. I'm now working with the marketing team. I've been the platform evangelist for a number of years, but have come over to the marketing team to help with product marketing and help our marketing team understand our product and our customer better. So I'm trying my best.
And Andy, I'm just trying to be like you. You went into marketing. I decided to follow you. So now I'm in marketing. I had to make Ernest put me in marketing. So I think we can share our pains later.
Right on.
All right. So we are here to talk about some pretty exciting stuff that just happened, right? So there was this webinar that happened this week. We talked about some new things. We talked about Claris Studio. I think some people knew it as the new stuff before, and now it's the Claris Studio. We talked about, or you all talked about, the licensing changes that you have in mind, as well as a program that's coming with that. In the webinar, I heard the word focus a lot. And so I want to talk about that at the end here. And I want to talk about the focus that Claris has and the longer big picture that you all have in mind, because I think it's exciting stuff. So that's kind of the big picture of what I want to talk about today. But why don't we just talk about this new stuff and maybe talk a little bit about Claris Studio and what that is? For those that maybe didn't watch the webinar, can we get the elevator pitch about it?
Yeah, the elevator pitch is how do we allow Claris and Claris's customers to benefit from the advancements in technology that have happened over the last decade, ubiquitous network access, easy web deployment, and just new thought out from the beginning application development, low-code application development. How do we make those things accessible to our existing customers, to a new generation of customers, while not abandoning our heritage, while not abandoning everything that has made the platform powerful to begin with? And so that's what I've been focused on for the bulk of my return here, is building all the scaffolding to create that. And we're finally at a place where you can see how it all stitches together. And so I'm really, really looking forward to this September launch, and showing the world what's possible when you take, new and modern and allow it to be leveraged by, what we think is the most powerful, capable low-code toolkit on the planet. So I don't know if that's enough of an elevator pitch, but
yeah, that's great.
Yeah, for my part, having been here on the 30 plus year journey with the platform, and reflecting a little bit back to some of your language, Ernest and Todd and Martha from the March podcast, right? This platform has evolved to a pretty special place. There's a lot of low code out there that couldn't hope to allow one to accomplish what we can. what a good developer can do with the Claris FileMaker platform today. And given that the landscape is dramatically changed, and it's not just about building one data-driven user experience in sort of an app container, that it really is stitching together this myriad of services and technologies that we all use now in our day-to-day business. FileMaker is uniquely suited for that and can benefit from a better, more modern approach to how we touch the cloud, right, and how we integrate with things that are there. And so I see the direction that Pete's going in with a lot of optimism in how it augments the tool set that we have to really project us into the next 30 years, right? And it's a good time.
And if you just look at the naming's intentional. Pro is a thing. Pro is our pro development environment and will continue to be our pro development environment. It's not going anywhere, number one, but its value is as our pro development environment. It's a super capable tool, but it's not a tool that a novice can pick up and be incredibly successful with in their first 3 days. Studio will be initially, but then you'll quickly hit a wall, and you want to keep going post that wall, there's Pro for you. And even if you don't want to invest in Pro, there's a community of Pro developers that we will help plug you into. And so all of those efforts are underway, the community outreach and making sure that we are connecting professional Claris developers with, nascent developers in Studio will be a significant effort of the companies in the coming year.
That's awesome. I was when the training program was going strong Andy, you think you dated yourself with 30 years? I think I'm running up to 20 and I'm getting a little nervous about it. I remember when I was the the new one in the party, which isn't the case anymore. We're getting close. But I was a trainer, and I think that exactly what you said, Peter, there was a challenge with getting newer people into the community or getting their hands dirty fast enough to get excited enough. And I think that this idea of having a product that lets somebody move faster, but then go into this other tool where they can do more stuff and have that pro level under themselves is really exciting. I think it's a great addition to what we already have.
And that was and is the point of that data pipe, is to allow that fluid movement between platforms. And don't get me wrong, Studio will not remain a tool for, just the nascent developer. It will grow quickly. But as I constantly remind people here, you got to build simple before you can build complex. So we're building a lot of simple, but we're almost done building simple, which is also a cool place to be.
That's great. I would like just to add a couple things. I mean, to me, what I see is so exciting here is the recognition that it's not starting over per se, but you did recognize that there's a whole new world out there, and you're moving to address that, and you're moving rapidly and in a very agile way. I'm very excited about that, but I think a lot of people in our community are nervous, and we're doing what we can to try to help folks see why this was necessary, this kind of big shift, and how to get excited about it, because I think the idea that somebody can spin up a new FileMaker like app in the cloud and get started right away is really critical. And so that seems to me to be one of the big things that you're pushing for, is to get that a sort of instant experience that people are used to getting with every other, whether it's something like Airtable or Coda or some of these other tools, whether we want to, maybe downplay their capabilities, they do let somebody get up and going pretty quickly and build something that is useful.
It's not about downplaying capabilities. What was really interesting for me coming back and starting to talk to partners and customers was the number of partners especially, who told us, a significant portion of our business has moved to Airtable in the last 2 years. And we'd be crazy not to understand that. It very explicitly, it doesn't mean we want to be Airtable. We don't. Because like you said, there's massive limitations there. And when you look at our community, the bulk of them are building solutions or have built solutions that aren't applicable to an Airtable environment. But if we don't learn from Airtable, if we don't take the good things of Airtable and make that onboarding experience and first developer steps as positive, as positive and delightful as Airtables, then we will lose out to them before the race even starts.
That's right.
So we are in a really interesting place of needing to compete with Airtable for the first couple steps of the race, but then very quickly our eyes have to be on the Power Apps of the world and organizations like that.
Yeah.
And that, again, is where Studio tied to Pro, I think, leaves us in a very, very uniquely competitive stance.
Yeah, I know we're going to talk about the problem solver circle and the program we're doing there, because I think as well, we've been pretty clear our differentiation over 30 years. We've built something pretty magical here, right? And we have a moat, and it is our ecosystem, right? It's you guys. It's the strength of our development community and what we know how to do better than anybody else. We have some thinking around a concept of the sort of the Claris way, right? We have a set of cultural values, we have a set of best practices and journeys that we know how to do better than anybody else, and we'll be talking about that more, I think, in the coming months. But there's a lot here that we don't always appreciate in terms of the competitive landscape and the power that we have together. So.
Yep. And then with the licensing changes that we're talking about, you are seeing the company bet on itself. I would characterize some of the past licensing as it was protectionist. And here what we're trying to say is, look, if we remove barriers to usage, if we remove barriers to people getting to success, more people will use our platform. We may leave some money on the table in the very, very, very short term. But if we can grow the number of people in an organization, if we can grow the number of organizations that are using our products and getting to success, we will flourish.
Yeah.
So it's about removing barriers.
Yeah.
Yeah, the freemium version is going to be a big deal for that. I mean, being able to inspire someone and say, let's try it out on this platform and see what you think about it. I mean, that's huge. Not having to worry about the licensing to start with. It's not hard to show FileMaker off when especially partnered with a pro developer, right? Like, give me a few days, let me get something for you, and then let them see it, let them play with it. I think that's huge.
Yep. And removing the range anxiety, essentially, of the trial, and letting people just know this is a tool they can play with and keep playing with and keep coming back to.
Yeah, I think in the trust economy, it would be terrible if people didn't find a way to trust the greatness of the product early on. Right? You have to give people access to that experience.
And so if we're going to bet on ourselves, it's an easy bet to make that people will fall in love with the product if we just let them use it.
And you have to buy that, right? I mean, that sort of attention isn't free, right? It's you either have to buy that with marketing dollars or some sort of marketing campaign or play or some kind of awareness campaign, or you do that with the product itself, right? And I think trying to do both obviously would be key. But I'm very, very excited about the licensing changes that are coming. It's a long time coming, and it's fantastic.
Why don't we talk a little bit about what that licensing looks like? So what do you have in mind there? It sounds like, I think the big phrasing around it is one Claris, one platform, one license. So can you talk a little bit about that?
I am very comfortable talking directionality.
Perfect.
I am not comfortable nor authorized to talk specifics around timeframes or costs or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But directionally, I've got written on I'm staring at it right now, like the North Stars for not just the program we're rolling out, but for everything we're building. And number one, and they were in the presentation, number one is no friction for adoption, no friction getting to success. Number two is a single identity everywhere across our platforms. Number three is all of your data everywhere. And number four is essentially honor our heritage, honor our developer, and the work they've put into the platform. So what it's going to look like is go ahead and get Pro anywhere you want. You can get it from the Mac App Store. You can download it directly from us. Eventually, you'll be able to get it from the Windows Marketplace. Claris Pro won't have a traditional license required for it. So you'll fire it up and it'll ask you for your One Claris platform login. And if you don't have one, you can click a button and just go get one. Poof. Now you've got a login. Along with that login, though, what you've got is a connection to Studio, which means you can log into Studio, you can use Studio fully, single user. But now you've got a data store in our cloud. So you can create solutions in Studio now. You can create solutions in Pro. When you create a new file, a new solution in Pro, all of your Studio data will just be right there in the graph. You don't have to do anything to make that connection. It's just there. Every table, every record, it's just there in Studio.
It's hot.
Okay? Use it, leverage it, build whatever you want. It'll all work. But if you want to create another named user in Pro, you're going to have to pay our license, whatever that ends up looking like. If you want to create additional users and share your solutions and publish them in Studio for other people to access on the web, you'll have to go pay for our subscription. That subscription will as well get you licenses to server, and Connect will already be there. But the key is you can develop your solution without pulling out your credit card. You can get to a place where you are confident this tool, this platform is going to work for you without pulling out your credit card. When you want to then go deploy the giant, fantastic HR solution that you just built, great. Pay us for that.
And then, so you mentioned Connect a little bit. So Connect is going to be built into, the idea is that it'll be built into.
Yeah, I hope we get that done in September, for September. If we don't have it totally done, it'll come shortly thereafter.
Okay.
But when you look at Studio's got two different views. It's got one for just the users coming into it. And I talked about that a little bit in the webinar. They'll see essentially all of the workflows that they can execute, all the things that they can do. When you go to Studio as an author, you got a bunch of different tabs where you can create workflows and create views and create data elements. But you can also create then automations, everything that you could do in Connect. So the
Nice.
Connect UI will just essentially be another tab under
Got it.
Studio.
Okay. Okay.
And you'll be able to then leverage all of that power easily in the views and workflows that you create in Studio, so that a button that might normally just accept a purchase request could also accept the purchase request and then automatically, save a copy of it to Dropbox and Slack the whole organization and yada, yada, yada. All the things you could do with Connect today.
Don't ask Todd how he feels about Slack notifications, because it'll be a whole nother podcast.
Well, I like doing Slack integrations.
Yeah, that's right. We do like those. Just everything in moderation.
We do have a lot of Slack integrations. Yeah.
Peter, let me ask a couple of questions as a listener, perhaps, as somebody who's kind of new to this whole Studio and Pro concept. So, are you saying that their data will be persisted and stored in Studio, even if you are working in Pro?
No, I'm saying Studio has its own data store.
Gotcha.
And that by default, any solutions you create in Pro have access to all of that data.
Got
Period.
it. So make something Studio and Pro will just have access to it out of the box.
You got it. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah. That's very hard.
Is it? And can you build layouts on top of that? Is that what that's what a FileMaker developer is going to ask? Is can I make a layout in my Pro solution on top of my Studio data?
What do you want the answer to be?
The answer is I'm thinking is yes, and I'm hoping it's yes, and that would make sense that it's yes. But
good.
We should just get that on the record.
Does it show up as a graph object out of the box?
So to date, everything shows up as a graph object out of the box, and to date, you actually can't even filter it and keep them from showing up, which is going to turn into a problem once Studio usage gets significant. So we'll have to build those filtering controls. I get that. They'll come. To date, everything in Studio is representable within the FileMaker space. I can imagine scenarios as these tools evolve where that's not the case, because the backing for Studio is a NoSQL engine. So we have the ability to capture data in some representations that, Claris Pro just isn't going to be able to make sense of. And we haven't done that intentionally for this first go round so that there's just complete compatibility between the two platforms. So later you may be able to make a choice and be told, hey, yeah, you can do that, but if you do, this data object won't be representable in Pro. Are you okay with that?
So let me try to break this down a little bit. So the problem this solves is that you can now go to one place, author a form, publish it, capture the data, float it into some persistence, and open it up in Pro and get access to it without configuring any new JSON, without flowing into a webhook. It's just there. And you can build layouts up to it.
That is one problem that this solves.
Mhm.
It also is massively easier to create certain types of forms and workflows in Studio than it was in Pro. The distinction between view and schema is somewhat blurred in Studio, so that for a junior developer, they don't need to think about a lot of different things. And again, if you want to think about those things, hey, there's Pro. Go to town.
So where do you see Studio differentiating itself from Typeform or paperless or paper forms or any one of those form-based type products?
The huge difference is in the connection to Pro. We're really genuine when we say our kryptonite against the rest of the world is our community and Pro, and that's going to continue to be the case for any future I can foresee. So there is no simplistic web development environment that has anything like Pro backing it and taking its data to the next level, allowing you to create apps of the complexity that we can create. Nothing close, number one. But then number two, if you look at how I expect competition with Airtable to play out, Airtable isn't ever going to go after the sort of complexity that we're going to go after, even in our cloud offering, even in the Studio offering. So yeah, we start out on a relatively simplistic footing in September because I have to. But very quickly, you'll get scripting capabilities in Studio that rival Pros. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Our platform will evolve in ways that our competitors aren't because we're targeting, real business apps, I would argue. I think with the Airtables of the world, you run into that capability wall so quickly that you can stand up a quickie solution. But if you ever really want it to be your HR system of record, you're going to end up rewriting it later. That's not the case with a Claris solution. Not at all.
That's one of the reasons that FileMaker's lasted for as long as it has, is that the ability to do all those little bespoke things, those things that are hard to you get somewhere, you pull in another tool, you try it out, and you're like, well, 80%, but that's not good enough. I need that other 10 to 15 to make it work. And so I think that's spot on.
Correct. And so we are going to be working hard over the next 2-3 years to add capabilities to Studio where with those capabilities, you can accomplish some things to 100%. That doesn't mean you're going to have a full application development environment in Studio of the fidelity that Pro provides in 3 years. You're not. But, like you guys just said, there are going to be some workflows like publishing anonymous forms and capturing data and pulling them into an application that then you're building in Pro, where, yeah, you can hit, the perfect sweet spot with the tools that we have. You will be able to build a nice, simple purchase request management flow in Studio and have it execute things exactly the way you want. If you want to build a logistics hub for a multinational organization, no, you're not going to be able to do that in Studio. It's not going to have the capabilities in the first 3 years. Someday it might. I don't know. We'll see where it goes. But that's not the goal right now. So the goal will be make it best in class at some very targeted things, always.
So the two very hard problems in our space, right? One is sync, and the other is forms. So I'm glad you're taking on the other one. Yeah.
Forms got easy. And sync is interesting, and we'll see how long sync continues to be a problem. I get the huge headache that it is today. There's going to be a day where sync is not a problem just because network access is absolutely ubiquitous. Whether that's 5 years from now or 25 years from now, I can't say. There have been a lot of questions about on-prem versions of Studio. And as I said in the webinar, we have not closed the door to that. We've actually gone to great lengths during its development to ensure that we can run a version of Studio on-prem if we need to.
I think you're gonna. I think, and I'll just add. I mean, I know obviously you can't do it initially. Lots of reasons why you want to do this, especially in this PSC program. It's not something you can do, but there are a lot of use cases for people to have their own on-prem data.
Of course there are.
Yeah.
Absolutely, of course there are. It's a question of whether the goal is on-prem data, if the goal is disconnected from a network on-prem data, or whether Zink is a solution to that for users. It's a question of whether there's more capability that we can provide by having centralized user stores and data stores in the cloud that can be shared with other organizations easily. So there's a pile of different trade-offs there. And then, as we talked about at the beginning, is there's focus and where we think we can get the biggest bang for the buck for all of you for each developer hour that we spend. So I hear you and I agree, Todd. Where it's going to reach, critical mass for us, we'll see. We'll see. But I'm not at all opposed to it. I've been working hard to keep the door open to it. But I have a feeling that things like, look, I don't have a Frankfurt data center yet. I don't have a Japanese data center yet. I don't have a South American data center yet. I need to get all those things stood up rapidly so that this system can be used effectively and low latency around the planet. So it's just about priorities, really.
Yeah. No, I get it. I get it. I think, I mean, just to say, I think it's one of the things that is a big benefit that Claris currently has, along with the ecosystem, is the ability to go on-prem if you need it. For some folks, it's literally just the idea that they can go on-prem if they need it.
And that's why I said there's a couple different ways to skin this cat. So it'd be super easy. I mean, really, really, really trivially easy for me to give you a button that lets you just suck the data out of Studio into server anytime you wanted to. That we can build in, an afternoon. But that's different than running Studio on-prem. So getting the data available on-prem, trivial. Absolutely trivial.
And I would say that's probably the biggest need, especially for people who have sensitive data, right?
Yep. Totally get it.
Yeah.
So giving you a button that just sucked data out of Studio and then purged it from Studio. Fine. That's easy.
But how many of us really aren't using public cloud services? How many of us aren't using Slackbox, whatever, right?
If the usage concerns are because of network access and things like that, I think in 5-10 years those disappear.
No, I don't think that's it. I think especially with the rapidly evolving data privacy and data security issues, I mean, we do see people who are just they're going to do their own cloud or on-prem because the data requirement, or because of the security issues that they have or the regulatory issues they have to do it.
Yep.
So, and I think it isn't necessarily about not being connected to a cloud, not being connected to the rest of the things that are out there in the cloud. I mean, we certainly see, one of the things that when we talk about modern FileMaker, we mean FileMaker connected to public and private cloud services that are all over the globe. That's one of the central tenets to what we talk about when we talk about modern FileMaker. But the ability to have the data that I care about and the data that I need to maintain under my control, even while I'm integrating with all these other services, is really what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, on-prem is a bit of a misnomer, right? I think this is what Todd is getting at.
Yeah, it's not on-prem. It's my
really,
cloud.
It's under my control.
Yeah,
under my control, right?
So, and look, if you just look at people's personal data, all my personal data is backed up to iCloud, but it's also backed up to a NAS in my garage.
Right.
For exactly the reasons you're talking about. And I would expect most businesses to be the same.
I get it. I just know this is one of the questions that's going to come up. It's come up for us. It's come up in our discussions with other folks in our community.
A lot of the recurring questions are when? Like when will I have the data server in the UK or in Australia? And I think the answer is that we need to get comfortable with as customers. I'm putting myself in the customer audience shoe as well, is that it's about prioritization.
Yeah.
Like what Pete is focused on next is these important things. Obviously, we just heard them. We need to get global to make this make sense. That's a high priority for us, right? So we'll know kind of what's on the horizon and what to expect. And I think as we get into a new pattern of delivery, particularly around Studio, we'll get more comfortable with that delivery.
And it means to engage in a conversation about it too. we need people we need to be transparent about the different things that we could have next in our roadmap. Because just having a conversation about is on-prem valuable, in all honesty, it's kind of pointless. Yeah, it's super valuable. I totally get it. What I need to engage with you on is, okay, I have these 9 different balls in the air.
Which ones?
Which ones? Pick any 2.
Well, I think that's one of the things that I really dug about the announcement, maybe dovetails into this part of the conversation really well. And that is this problem solver circle program, because it seems to me to tick a lot of boxes. One is it helps you get your infrastructure sort of tested, but in a controlled way. But it also gives you early access to customers and their real solutions and their real problems at a scale that you can handle. And what that will give you is feedback on how to prioritize your roadmap, right? That will help tell you. You get 500 customers that are already deep into this ecosystem. They're going to be able to give you a lot of insight into what actually does matter earlier rather than later. Was that part of the idea in setting this program up?
Yes, for sure. But I would expand that a little bit, Todd, to say that it's not just about Studio, right? It's not just about our new emerging technologies and satisfying for Pete's curiosity. But there's a lot more here that we learn in this program that goes to what happens when there is a unified platform in place at an organization that can use it anywhere without any restriction, without any friction, right? And so we can learn from our support for partners like Proof+Geist and the rest of our partner community. What are the things that you need in that kind of scenario to help you improve that business in a broader way than just tackling a problem that one has been called to assign and solve for, right? Like once you do that and you prove value to the company, why not do it again and again and again? Like, so if we take away those friction points, we're going to get some learnings that I think are going to inform us about the future platform as it evolves and grows as well.
I think it adds a lot of things. I mean, getting rid of the friction, getting people to try new tools, getting people to really just have a chance to buy in 100%, like, because you got rid of all those friction points.
Yeah, I mean, look at the lesson that we learned, I think, with Connect. It's a fantastic platform. It's a very competitive platform in the feature set relative to other iPaaS platforms. But we launched it, as a separate product that one had to make an independent decision about, make an evaluation about what it's worth, and figure out, does this even make sense in my organization? What happens when that is rolled into our whole platform and you just have it? So let's go explore and see what we can figure out and what might work there. That's the kind of thing we want to get better at or learn more about. So one of the questions that came back a lot since 3 days ago, feels like it's been a month, but a lot of the questions that are coming back are conflating the Problem Solver Circle program and Claris Studio. And I want to be clear to the audience. I've said this in some other forums, but if your thinking is that the reason to get into Problem Solver Circle is to get first access to the first release of Claris Studio, you got it all wrong. You're doing it wrong. Like, that's not what the program is about, right? The program is really about, first and foremost, enabling our developers and our Claris partners a sort of new model of engagement with the customers and companies that they work with to go off and do broad-based continuous improvement wherever that business needs, right? We know our platform can do it. We know that our partners and developers can do it. Let's make it easier for the businesses to invite you in and say, okay, yeah, let's do more, right? The Problem Solver Circle is in there, and it is a great benefit as a first, place to touch it, and for all the reasons that you just described, Todd, right? So
I think that's worth repeating, because I think people are expecting the studio to be, just a massive win for them right off the bat in this program, and that's not the main point of the program, as you're saying, and I think that's really worth leaning on a bit, so that people can understand, not only to set the proper expectation for what Studio will be when it launches in September, but also just to inspire folks to engage in a new way with their customers.
Yeah, I mean, the program lasts for 2 years, right? Our hope and belief is that the customers that enroll, with our support, with the support of the partners that they work with and the developers they have, that those customers will do more and will innovate. They will improve their business using the platform over a 2-year period. They will try new things. We're all going to learn from that. Guess what? The developer preview for Studio is not going to matter 2 years from now. It's not going to matter 6 months from now, right? It's an early benefit, and there are definitely some reasons why they align well together. But yeah, the program itself means much, much more. And frankly, now that I'm in marketing, but still thinking like a developer and a customer, if we get some big wins in how we cooperate and facilitate your success as partners and developers, then we'll do more stuff like that, right? Or we'll expand it, or we'll do whatever.
When I think about the program, there have been a lot of questions over the last couple of days, essentially asking, hey, are you guys serious? If I have a company here that's got 100,000 employees, but we're only paying for 25 seats right now, do you really mean that I get 100,000 seats? Yeah. Yeah. And the rationale from our side of the fence is, okay, maybe we leave a little bit of money on the table over the coming year or so. But if you're telling me we can get a company of 100,000 seats totally free to leverage our tools for 2 years and build things unconstrained without having to think about licensing costs for 2 years, at the end of those 2 years, what are things likely to look like? Well, if we've built great tools, they should look absolutely rosy for us.
That's right.
With that customer.
Mm-hmm.
So happy to make that bet, number one. And then two, going with what you said, Todd, about the developer preview for Studio. The picture I painted in the webinar is what Studio will be in September. Fully. And frankly, there are a couple more little nuggets there that'll be lovely for people in September that we didn't talk about. This preview is very, very, very stripped down. It is anonymous forms, so you can create forms and publish them for people to fill out anonymously. Capture that data and leverage it in Pro. You're not going to get full workflow or application development in Studio.
Right. Right.
Not at all. That comes in September. So you get one small snippet of the Studio functionality. The reason to take this promo, the Problem Solver Circle promo, is for the site license. Absolutely.
I think one of the things that's striking to me is that this is perhaps one of the first programs in recent memory, anyway, where Claris has really targeted consultants and partners, developers, and I think that's worth underscoring. I think our perception. I think some of us are confused because we always imagine, well, what Claris is selling to the customer, and then we have to kind of figure out how to harvest from that deal. Whereas this is really about pushing us into spaces.
100%. Like we definitely have a history in the last 20 years of wanting to talk to a mythical end user, and the crutch in that dialogue is always easy, right? It's easy. You can pick it up. But we know that's not really what we're about. We solve hard problems that matter. We are a professional grade tool set. And like Pete said earlier, you don't pick this thing up in 3 days and make magic, but you guys make magic, right? And so the acknowledgement of this program is that, yeah, our developers and partners are the ones who push the adoption of the program, who grow our mutual business. It's not us, right? But the other thing that's implicit there is that we also need to tell a value story that goes to the business owner, right? The person that the partner and the developer have to convince to do more. And that business owner, that CEO, I think Brad called him an economic buyer, thinks at a value level about their organization, right? How do I grow revenue? How do I grow my business? How do I build efficiencies and save expenses? How do I build better customer experiences? And you put all those things together. How do I outcompete my market and succeed into the future? That's what they care about. They don't care about the technologies and whether we're an iPaaS or an app development platform or all the above or whatnot, right? So it's how do we build messaging that resonates at that business value level for the owners who really have the budget, and then enable developers and partners, or support developers and partners in the pitch, right? And then we can do more for your business. Let's go out and innovate. So it is a new thing. I appreciate your acknowledgement of it. And, we'll learn how to get better at that messaging and how to better support you and how to better support our developers. And I'm super excited about this.
I think one of the shifts that's really important here is the agile. That I mean, like it's been said for a while now. This isn't the first time you've said it out loud. We've done the webinar, right? It's been repeated. But this program wouldn't be possible without Agile. The work that we're going to do with our customers on this program would not be possible without Agile, right? We're going to deliver things in smaller chunks. We're going to get smaller wins, but we're going to get wins, right? And we're going to pivot when we need to. And that's what I'm hearing, is that in parallel, you'll be doing the same on the product, right? So you'll be hearing how we're going into the businesses. You're going to hear about what experience they have, what they need, where we can find these little spaces where we can provide more value. And then
Mm-hmm.
we come to you and say, hey, here are some places where we think that this is scalable, where this isn't just for this business. Other places are going to need something similar.
Sure, whether it's Pete's product or my product,
Right.
answering you, right? Like,
Yeah.
we have to have a ways to meet our customer where that customer is, in the ways that, help us to deliver the message and help them understand the benefits, so that you guys can do more business, so you guys can succeed, right? And so, yeah, we think in an agile mindset about marketing and sales in every part of this company, as much as we do about the technology we deliver.
I think you're also giving developers the freedom to actually explore. I think, we talk about the site license is a huge benefit for the customer, but it's a huge benefit for us as the developer, because now I'm not just talking to the accounting department anymore. I'm not just talking to the person in the warehouse, right? Now I get to talk to everyone at that company to really
Mm-hmm.
get an idea of where FileMaker could work for them, or where Claris could work for them, whatever part of the platform they need. That's a barrier that's probably been around subconsciously. I know how many licenses my clients have, and I know that only
Mm-hmm.
this department knows about it. And now I don't have that. I'll feel more free to say, hey, that's great, but with your site license, we can go talk to this other side and let's go see what they need, right? And that's pretty freeing. I mean, that's a big deal.
It's also a model that is designed intentionally to create more of you, and to make it easier to create more of you, which I'm going to argue very, very strongly is going to make your life easier. When you can walk into a building and there are, thousands of you potentially in an area, instead of you being the only lone one arguing why not to use whatever technology. So yeah, there's no reason our community shouldn't be much larger than it is.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that goes back to the brand, evolution, right? And really emphasizing Claris, right? We want people to understand the platform and expertise in it as a true career motivator, right? One should proudly say, I'm a Claris developer, Ninja level 1, level 2, whatever it is, right? Like all the things that we can certify one on their journey of getting good with the Claris platform. And we know that we haven't invested in FileMaker as a brand that one can proudly wave that flag around in a lot of organizations that don't yet understand it, right? And it is the platform that thing's still around. We've heard all those stories and been in those
Sure.
meetings, and so the evolution towards a Claris centric brand. It's a shift. It's going to take me a long time to not say things like FileMaker Studio instead of Claris Studio. It's good. I've been doing this 30 years too. It's going
It's
to
a
be hard.
good move, though.
I think it's the right thing.
It's a great move. I mean, it just makes so much more sense to unify things around the Claris brand, and this idea of what exactly is a FileMaker anyway. Is like, it's always been this kind of weird thing that we had to deal with,
Mm-hmm.
and now you just have Claris Pro, Go, Studio. I mean, it's great. I'm thrilled with it. I think I mean, I don't know how long it took, how many conversations it took to get there, but I'm glad you made it.
Well, we want to do it intentionally. Brad took over a few years ago, and one of the first things we did was rebranded the company right back
Mhm.
and to Claris, and so the sort of intentions were clear, but we don't want to just sunset the FileMaker brand without intention, right? It has to be at the right time for the right
Yeah.
reasons and those sorts of things, and we do have a lot invested in it.
Yep.
I am one. I've been a FileMaker developer and user for 30 years. Right? It's part of me, and so we know that that's there, but yeah, we have to address our sort of brand in the marketplace and its strength. And we have other headwinds happening too, right? The advances we're making in the education space right now with our parent company, the ability to really represent ourselves as an Apple company, that there's brand strength there that
Yep.
can really matter. And so we think the Claris brand has an incredible future, and we're going to make the most of it we can.
The point about not sunsetting it too. I mean, that's what's going to give people, the people who have been around, the good feels about it, and sort of, just the idea that they can trust us and keep going. And I think another thing that got announced in the webinar, which was sort of overshadowed by all this new stuff, but is actually really cool and really important for the day-to-day work that we do, doing FileMaker development today, are the new versions 19.5 and 19.6 that were announced. I mean, this is awesome stuff. So you're not, I mean, it's clear that there's still development going into FileMaker as we knew it. And these are important, really important new features that we're getting. And part of this modern FileMaker story that we are telling is you need to be lighter, you need to be agile, you need to be able to pivot and move. And so something like transactions, which we've been doing since FileMaker 7, but the amount of ceremony and complexity that we had to bring to a solution was a huge weight. So if you're designing a simple solution, but it has to have transactions, you had to go through a whole bunch of hoops to make that happen. You had to add a bunch of overhead. And I don't mean in terms of performance. I mean in brain space. You had to understand the weird way in which you could get transactions to work. That all goes away with transaction support. And so now a very simple solution that needs transactions can get it without a lot of overhead. That kind of stuff is really, really important in this modern story that we're trying to tell.
Todd, I remember we started having these conversations in Colorado just before the launch of 7 back in the day. Sitting around that table, that was crazy, man. It's been a long time.
Yeah, so that's a big one. I think the OAuth groups is another a big one that's going to make things it removes complexity, removes friction from developing systems for people that are using, whatever modern identity platform they're using. They're now going to be able to get much more use out of it without bespoke group management or authentication management. They just get that as part of the platform. These steps will matter a lot. In fact, those two things are probably going to matter more to most FileMaker people than Studio is going to matter in the next year. So I think it's really important to emphasize that is still a very important track that's ongoing, and we're seeing evidence of it with 19.5 and 19.6. So thanks for that.
You're welcome. And you'll see continued development there, and you'll see continued transparency, because the things I'd play into it also are, I'll reiterate, the announcement about 19.6 and the targeted enhancements there, that's the first time we've publicly talked about that kind of thing. And we'll continue to do that. And we'll continue to solicit feedback about those things. Number one. Two, the two bits of functionality that you raised, transactions and group support, they're really interesting because they're two areas where there is conflict and tension between Studio and the traditional FileMaker world. Our back end in Studio doesn't support transactions. It's an eventually consistent, Mongo database. And there's massive power there that we can array for your benefit. And there's some limitations. And over the next couple of years, we're going to figure out together how we get to leverage that power without letting some of the limitations become too onerous, etc. And then we are setting Studio up to be the system of record for the users in your world, or at least to be a portal to the system of record for the users in your world. And so the way that Studio wants to work with groups long-term still has to get figured out. And again, we'll work with y'all to figure out exactly what that needs to look like, given the nature of the solutions that you end up wanting to create in this hybrid world with Studio and FileMaker. So lots to figure out. But the beauty of Agile is we don't have to have all the answers today. We don't. We know what we're doing for the next 4 months.
I'm chasing Peter around. That's what I'm doing for the next 4 months. Trying to figure out good.
Yeah, Agile makes it tough on the marketing team, but everyone else loves it. It's good for the customer. It's good for the developers. We have to, hold our own for a while.
We also have a lot on our plates too that we're planning. I'm planning in October to be somewhere in the mountains in Georgia, Martha.
That's
Yeah.
right.
No, there we go.
Tell me where you'll be in October.
I heard there's an event coming to Georgia and it's in my backyard. How can I not be there?
That's right. And you made it last year, so you know how great Pause on Air really can be, right?
Yeah, this year I hope we have continuity of electricity. But other than that, it was great.
That was a feature.
Yeah, feature or bug. I mean,
feature.
I don't know. We might just offer it as someone can pay to not have power.
It's an add-on. It's an add-on to remove power from your life for a couple of days.
I will bring my truck and I'll carry up some firewood just in case.
There we go. There we go. If you could bring some headlamps. I think Sarah Severson had some headlamps. Maybe she was the one who caused it. Who knows?
For the audience that doesn't know, we're talking about the Pause on Error. Sorry, I was saying auto enter in the back of my head. The Pause on Error events. I hope people.
Well, that might be something to mention too.
Well, I will say thank you for the auto enter Discord site, which appreciate you guys hosting the watch parties. And I usually try to be paying attention during our presentations, but I was a little busy this year, so I did tap in afterwards, and it's been great to see some of the Q&A there. And really appreciate Proof+Geist hosting that for the community, and it's a great resource.
Well, it's been great, and I think Peter's participation is winning him a lot of fans. It's been really nice to see. We hope to expand auto enter. We've kind of done this sort of in the past with along with events that Claris has put on, but this year in collaboration with Soliant, we are planning to do a virtual conference.
Nice.
And it'll be with the auto enter sort of feel, but with sessions and an expo, job board. We're still fleshing out a lot of what the features will be, but we expect it to be a 1 or 2 day event, probably a 2-day event sometime later this year. So look for announcements. Yeah, we're very excited about it. And we think it's going to be a great additional event to add to this year's calendar. We'll see whether it needs to live on after this year, but for this year, we're going to do it.
That's fantastic. It's really good to hear. I've heard murmurings, so you're confirming intention that I haven't gotten any details on yet. So that's fantastic. We'll support you as best we can. Yeah, I think one of the things about this community, talking about the Claris way, this thing that we have. I've been contacted about .fmp in Berlin. You guys are talking about this. We have Pause on Error. We've been doing the Claris Corners with developer groups around the world for the last couple of months, and expect to continue doing that. I think you have the Discord channel. There's just so many ways we can stay in touch on a continuous basis and bring these things to happen. So thank you for your investment in it. And I don't know, just love it. It makes it easy for us. Let's figure out how to do it together.
Well, I mean, it's pretty important. I mean, that's the reason we're doing this event is that it's, I mean, a lot of us have been gathering in one form or another for decades. And It really is the backbone of sort of what we do as a community and as an industry. And so we want to explore that in a new way, different than Pause. Pause is an in-person event with a very specific feel and a very specific intent. This one will be more like virtual events you've seen in the last few years since COVID, with a focus on the industry and vendors and techniques and tips and all that kind of stuff. So, but we think it's important, and so we're going to do it. And so look for lots of announcements in the near future on that.
It's great. I know there's an elephant in the room in that we're not doing the in-person event hosted by Claris this year. We try to do those at a pretty big scale, but I think having these kind of things in the community is equally powerful. And we will do events again someday, right? It will happen. We don't have one on the calendar right now, but we know we're going to get back together. So
it'll happen.
Yeah, it's great that we have all this.
But it's also, when you're putting out a release of the software every 2 years, having an event every so often is awesome. When you're putting out a release of the software every 3 weeks, which is where we're going to get to, we need to be talking way more frequently.
Well, this is why I keep inserting myself in all these different events, like the podcast and Pause and this virtual conference, just to make sure you keep telling me what's going on. So you've got so much change happening that I want you to keep telling me about it. So
we'll make sure that links to these various events get put in the show notes so that you can find them. They'll also be available on the Claris events site as well.
Yeah. Also, I intend to make sure you guys have a URL. If people have more questions or want info about the Problem Solver Circle, we'll make sure that we have a link from this podcast to it, because it is a limited time thing and limited number of customers, but we think it's of enormous value. So the excitement that's coming back from the community has been really validating and exciting, and we are all in to make it work as best we can and hope we get it filled up right away. So we'll have a link down there or wherever it'll appear on the webpage.
Smash that subscribe button.
And we've got a pool internally for how many people we think we can get signed up, and I've got a high number there, so I need.
Oh, it's gonna be a big number.
Yeah.
I'm convinced it's gonna be a big number.
I hope so. I think it will be. And, people have been asking about, what about this constituency that doesn't work for the program, or that one? I'm like, we'll get to that next quarter. Like, again, let's solve this problem first, see what we can learn. And then we have some other things in mind. So yeah, let's make it happen. Awesome.
Well, I thought the whole webinar went great, and these programs just are just right on target. And just really excited to see how these things evolve in the coming years. And super excited to get hands-on new features from our core and best friend FileMaker 19.5 and 19.6 ASAP. Can't wait to get scripted transactions. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we really appreciate you guys and your vision. Appreciate your allowing us in today to chat with you and your support. So look forward to doing a lot more of this. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Anytime. Happy to have you.
Yeah, we're excited to be along on the ride, and thanks for letting us sit in the passenger side. So we're excited about
great
it.
Great work,
so
guys.
We'll keep doing
Looking
it.
forward to it.
Thank you for joining us, and a huge thank you to Peter and Andy for making the time for the podcast. We hope this is one of many conversations with Claris as the platform continues to grow. Just as a reminder, this is available on YouTube and as a podcast, and make sure you check out the show notes, as there are a lot of links to share there. If you can take a minute to pause and subscribe, we'd really appreciate it, but better yet, if you can share it with a friend, that would be pretty awesome. No matter what your role is in this community, you're proof of how amazing this Claris community really is. My job is to help spread your knowledge and your stories on the podcast. Find me on Twitter at MZ123 or at Proof+Geist, and let's share your story.